So there was a really terrible, awful massacre, shooting that happened in the United States. And here's the headline from the BBC: Texas shooting, 19 children among dead in primary school attack. So 19 young children and 2 adults, 2 teachers, right, have died in a shooting at a primary school in South Texas. The gunman opened fire at Robb Elementary School, which teaches children aged 7 to 10 in the city of Uvalde, before he was killed by law enforcement. So this was an 18-year-old, and he had a handgun and an AR-15 semi-automatic rifle and high-capacity magazines. Okay, so an AR-15, you cannot fight, it's not a machine gun. It doesn't, go brrr. It's a semi-automatic. It's single shot. But nevertheless, it's obviously very, very lethal. And, 21 people dead. And what happened here is really incredible. There are several things you have to understand about this story, because, this school literally had a drill. And I think about 2 months ago, for situations like this, they practiced what to do and, how to be safe. And I don't just mean the school itself. They had, they're cooperating with local law enforcement, with SWAT, and all this stuff. And it's really horrific how these children and the 2 teachers were killed, and how the law enforcement failed to protect them. Right? They failed to protect them, and it's very tragic. And this is, people are saying this is the biggest primary school shooting since Sandy Hook. I think in the United States, and generally speaking, Columbine was obviously the most famous. But when we talk about primary schools, this is certainly the largest since. And people are asking questions like, how did this guy get in the school in the first place? Where were the police? Why did no one help? Well, let's go through it. Let's try and dissect this bit by bit. I have the exact timeline for you, and again, this is according to the information that we have at the moment. I'm assuming that things will change. You know why? Because the police have made statements about their behavior, about their actions, and then retracted them and said new things. Right? Like they said, for example, that the guy had body armor, and that's why they didn't want to go in. And turns out he doesn't have body armor. And other things, which I'll get to in a second. So let's just look at the timeline of events, okay? So this guy, the shooter, just so you understand, he shot his own grandmother. He killed his own grandmother, took her truck, and then drove to the school. And, he gets out, and people already saw that he has a gun and reported him to the police. So about 11:27 a.m., video footage shows a teacher at the school propping open an exterior door. And that's the one that Ramos went through, okay? Now, Ramos' vehicle crashes near the school. This is exactly what I just told you, right? 2 men at a nearby funeral home made their way to the crash scene, where they saw Ramos exit the vehicle with a gun and backpack, right? The witnesses reportedly began running, and Ramos tried shooting at them. So do you understand? Like, even before this guy gets inside the school, he's already, randomly shooting people. And 2 minutes later, 911 receives a phone call that there's a man who crashed his vehicle and has a gun. So the guy, the shooter, Ramos, reaches the last row of vehicles in the school parking lot, according to McCraw. The 18-year-old began shooting at the school while police responded to the funeral home. Okay, so he's shooting at the school. He's not even inside it yet. Again, it says it here, Ramos fires multiple shots at the school from outside and then enters the building. And here, so, this is not even 5 minutes later after he's got out of the car. There's so many things happening in just 5 minutes. He begins shooting in a classroom, and the audio evidence from the video footage shows him shooting over 100 rounds. So again, this is the argument that some people make that, even though it's a semi-auto, You know, if you can fire off 100 rounds in such a short period of time. Again, I don't know about that. We'll get to this later because, you know, technically speaking, you could get a Lee Enfield 303, which is a British rifle from World War II, and also, you know, get off 10 rounds in a very short time. And of course, that if you keep putting magazines, you could also get off tons of rounds. But we'll get back to this in a moment. I just want to lay out what happened. So 3 officers enter the school through the same doors that the shooter went to. Later, 4 more officers joined. So the first officers who got in were shot at, and some were grazed by bullets. And almost shut the door to the classroom. So, I mean, do you understand, like, what happened? This guy crashed his car at 11:28, and already at 11:35, the police are there, and he's shooting at them. 16 rounds fired. More police coming. So, half an hour later, there's 19 police officers in the hallway. Do you understand what's going on? This guy has a gun and he's inside a classroom, and you're 19 police officers outside just doing nothing because, you know, they claimed that basically the active shooter situation had transitioned into a barricaded person call. Okay? A female caller dialed 911 from the classroom. The length of the call was less than 90 seconds. She said her name and she said she was in classroom 112. So she told 911 that multiple people were dead. And you have technicians who are they're talking about police in this case, right? So basically, the entire time that they're standing outside, you can see from 12:03 all the way, you know, during this half an hour, this guy is killing more and more people, more and more children, actually, right? It's really awful. It's really awful, and you have to understand something. This classroom actually was a double classroom, so there's like one room with a door that goes to another classroom, okay? And you had people, this is my understanding, that people in the other classroom who were calling 911, and, you know, when he heard them, he shot them. And it's really awful. You can see here the testimony from this girl, just, you know, really, it's gut-wrenching. It's really, really gut-wrenching. Listen to this.
He shot our next person's door, and then we have a door in the middle, and he opened it, and then he came in and he crouched a little bit, and he said it's time to die. When he shot, it was very loud and it hurt my ear. When I saw the bullets on the floor, it was real. And when I heard the shooting through the door, I told my friend to hide under something so he won't find us. I was hiding hard, and I was telling my friend to not talk because he's gonna hear us. The cop said, "Help if you need help." And then one of the persons in my class said, "Help." The guy overheard, and he came in and shot her. And then the cops barged into that classroom, and the guy shot the cops, and the cops just started shooting at. Just opened the curtain, and then I just put my hand out, and then I got.
My goodness, do you understand what happened? The police basically said, you know, shout help if you need help, and someone did, and then the shooter heard them and just shot them. I mean, this is so stupid, honestly, really. They basically got someone killed for no reason. What a tragedy. What a tragedy, really. And you know what makes this all the more egregious? There were parents standing outside the school while all this was happening, and basically yelling at the police, like, why are you here? Why aren't you inside the school saving our children? And it's really nuts. It's really insane what happened. Here's a video of the situation, right? The cops literally stopped parents from helping their kids. Look at this. You can see, I see somebody on the ground. Do you see that as well? Somebody's on the ground. They look like they're arresting them. Awful stuff, man. Really awful stuff. And I want you to listen to this video now, because this is the police speaking and being interviewed. Listen to what he says.
Border Patrol agent was struck with gunfire. A few officers shot. We've heard that some law enforcement officers actually went into school to get their kids out. Can you talk about that?
Right. So what we do know, Vanessa, right now that there was some police officers, families trying to get their children out of the school because it was an active shooter situation right now. It's a terrible situation right now. And of course, just as we mentioned.
Do you understand that basically some of the police, their kids went to the school and they were allowed to go in and get their kids to safety.
Loss of life. It's just terrible. It's a terrible tragedy when that took place.
But they wouldn't let the parents do that. I mean, that strikes me as a bit selfish, no? To say the least. It's a bit selfish. And again, here with these claims, because a lot of people are asking, like, you were standing outside, you're antagonizing the parents. You go in to get your kids, but you won't go in to stop the guy from shooting our children. And this is incredible. This is really incredible because they basically hold on, let me show you. You're not going to believe this. You're not going to believe this. One of the parents was actually handcuffed. So this is from the Wall Street Journal. Miss Gomez, a farm supervisor, was also waiting outside for her children. She said she was one of numerous parents who began encouraging, first politely, and then with more urgency, police and other law enforcement to enter the school sooner. After a few minutes, she said U.S. Marshals put her in handcuffs, telling her she was being arrested for intervening in an active investigation. What the heck? I mean, I don't even know what to say, man. I don't even know what to say to that. Like, this is so insulting and degrading and completely unnecessary. Really, just wow. And you can see here how they're changing the story. So officials, had initially said the gunman was wearing body armor before reversing course and saying this was not the case, right? So basically, that's one of the reasons that they use, one of the excuses, I should say, that because people are asking, why didn't you go in? And they're saying, well, yeah, he had a body armor. Wouldn't be effective. So this is from the Washington Post. They say officials have also made unclear statements about whether they actually made it into the building before they say police confronted and shot the gunman. During Thursday's news briefing, Escalon contradicted himself on the subject. He said initially that the officers were, quote-unquote, inside making entry, but had to take cover while the gunman shot at them. He later made it sound like they did not make it inside, saying they don't make entry initially because of the gunfire. So, just really a ton of shady stuff here. And I understand, like, when you have big things like this happening, the details, you need time for the details to emerge to put everything together. But this is something else. This is something else. And I want to show you here from ABC News. Look what they say. So 2 months before this mass shooting in Uvalde, Texas, at this primary school, which left 19 children and 2 adults dead, the Uvalde School District hosted an all-day training session for local police and other school-based law enforcement officers focused on a quote-unquote active shooter response. So this school where these children were massacred was literally training the police. The police had training for this exact situation not even 2 months ago. Okay? Quote, first responders to the active shooter scene will usually be required to place themselves in harm's way, according to a lengthy course description posted online by the Texas agency that developed the training. Quote, time is the number one enemy during active shooter response. The best hope that innocent victims have is that officers immediately move into action to isolate, distract, or neutralize the threat, even if that means one officer acting alone. So just to, again, reiterate and make this very clear, they're saying that when you have an active shooter situation, the number one thing that you should do is try to distract the shooter, isolate them, get them away. Even if you're one cop, and you have to put yourself in harm's way because as time passes by, this guy's killing more and more people. You got to act immediately. And they're literally saying your first responders to the active shooter scene will usually be required to place themselves in harm's way. That is the job, right? That's the job. I'm not saying it's nice or anything like that. But you got 19 cops. Right? Let me go back to that article. They were saying 19 cops inside and more cops outside. I lost count, honestly. All of these people, and they did nothing. And look at here. Look at this. Remember, they're not even 5 minutes past. Do you remember? He gets here at 11:28. He crashes his truck. This shooter. And 5 minutes later, the police are already in the school. 5 minutes later, at 11:35 a.m. Right, and so that's the same time that he begins shooting, and the police don't actually get him for over an hour. It's only at 12:50 that officers breach the door using keys obtained from a janitor, and kill the suspect. So just to be clear, from 11:33 to 12:50 p.m., they left this guy alone in a room to shoot and kill primary school students. And there's dozens of cops there. Dozens. I mean, I don't know what to say to this. Is it incompetence? Is it negligence? I really don't know what to say to this. This is shocking. This is so shocking. And if you go back to the article that was at ABC, they're basically saying that this behavior by the police violates their own training. This goes against what they were trained to do. So that's what makes it all the more egregious, right? I want to show you something here as well, which should shock you. The money, 40% of it is going to the cops, right? So again, in January, Uvalde City Police received a $500,000 grant from the state's controversial Operation Lone Star program, which Abbott launched last March, deploying thousands of soldiers to the state's southern border. The grant came on top of the department's existing $4 million budget, just under 40% of the city's general fund. Do you understand? So this police department already gets $4 million, which is like 40% of the city's general fund. And this is how they act. My goodness. Wow. It's really terrible, man. It's really terrible. You go back to the ABC article, they're basically saying that relatives of victims and neighbors of Uvalde's Robb Elementary School are raising questions over how police officers who first arrived on the scene handled the situation, including whether they followed their own training. Honestly, man, like that's a legitimate question. That's a very legitimate question. I mean, these people, their family watching their kids being murdered like that, and the police just standing by. I mean, what's the point of the police then, right? Something very weird going on. I don't even know what to say. I'm shocked and it's awful. You know what happened? So 19 children were killed and two teachers, right? Do you know what happened? The husband of one of the teachers that was killed had a heart attack the next day. This guy literally died of grief. Can you imagine that? So 19 children were killed, plus the two teachers, and the husband of one of the teachers couldn't take it and literally had a heart attack the next day and died. I mean, this is so heartbreaking. This is really messed up, man. This is really messed up. This is from The Independent. They say on Thursday, the husband of Miss Garcia died of a heart attack as he prepared for her funeral, right? So the husband of a woman murdered in the Uvalde mass shooting has died of a heart attack 2 days after the attack. His name is Joe Garcia, and he was the husband of Irma Garcia, who was one of the two faculty members who were killed during the shooting. That's heartbreaking, man. That's really heartbreaking. What a shame, really. What a shame. I want to show you some of the responses that have come out. Because if you look at what happened in Uvalde, just alone, like on its own, this is so much to take in, man. It's so much to take in. It's such a tragic thing and so violent and awful. And we haven't even gotten into the whole trend of mass shootings, right? Which I will in a second. But just to show you the responses, this is Ted Cruz, okay? And Ted Cruz is the senator from Texas. I want you to look at his response to this mass shooting. One of the things that he said. I mean, I don't know what to say. You tell me.
Schools safer, and one of the things that everyone agreed is don't have all of these unlocked back doors. Have one door into and out of the school, and have that one door armed police officers at that door. If that had happened, if those federal grants had gone to this school, when that psychopath arrived, the armed police officers could have taken him out, and we'd have 19 children and 2 teachers still alive. Schools safer.
Now, look, man, I want to be clear. I understand what he's saying. I understand. It's not completely stupid. Usually, in an important building, you will have soldiers there, right? You'll have guards at an embassy, for example. But the issue is not the door. The issue is that how did the police respond when they were there, when they found out, oh, there's an active shooter? That's the issue. Do you understand? And I get what he's saying, but this is not a solution because I don't know. I feel like it's a bit lacking. I'm trying to be very diplomatic here with Ted Cruz. I'm going easy on him. This is nonsense, really. I'm sorry. This is nonsense. You could do that on every school and you're still gonna have a problem here, right? You're still gonna have a problem. I want to show you what Ted Cruz did when he was interviewed by Sky News, and you're gonna watch this, and so again, he's being asked about this massacre.
There are 19 sets of parents who are never going to get to kiss their child goodnight again.
Is this the moment to reform gun laws?
It's easy to go to politics.
But it's important. It's at the heart of the issue.
I get that that's where the media likes to go.
No, it's not. It's where many of the people we've talked to here like to go.
The proposals from Democrats in the media, inevitably, when some violent psychopath murders people.
A violent psychopath who's able to get a weapon so easily. 18-year-old with 2 AR-15s.
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
Yeah, exactly. Thank you so much for asking. I'm so happy Sky News actually did some journalism, man. Thank you for asking this question. Why the fuck does this always happen in America? Why? What is the answer? What is the answer? Why is it always in America?
If you want to stop violent crime, the proposals the Democrats have, none of them would have stopped this.
But why does this only happen in your country? I really think that's what many people around the world they cannot fathom. Why only in America? Why is this American exceptionalism so awful?
I'm sorry you think American exceptionalism is awful.
I think this aspect of it.
You got your political agenda.
No, it's honestly,
God love you.
Senator, it's not. I just want to understand why you do not think that guns are the problem.
Why is this just an American problem?
Well, it is just an American problem, sir.
Mr. Cruz, why is America the only country that faces this kind of mass shooting?
But you can't answer that. You can't answer that, can you, sir? You can't answer that. Why is this country?
Why is it that people come from all over the world to America? Because it's the freest, most prosperous, safest country on earth.
It may be the freest, it may be the most
Why are
popular.
our kids dying in school?
Oh my God, man. Oh, that was hilarious. I really love that. Hey, why are there mass shootings in your country? Listen, man, we are free, okay? And people are free here, and we have freedom. Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you. Very, very, such a remarkable intellectual capacity. He totally answered the question. The journalist, the guy, asking him the question is right. Yeah, you may be the freest. Why is this keep happening in America? I don't know. Like, I think this is a valid question, and it's not snarky, because when I'm reporting on this, I'm telling you about this. Do you see me laughing? Do you think I find this funny? This is horrible. It's disgusting. Whether this happens in Yemen, whether it happens in the U.S., it's horrible. But there's a trend here, and I'm not kidding. I legitimately want an answer to this question because I cannot find one, and I don't think it's very smart or responsible of him to just walk away. Come on, man. You're a senator, and he's asking you a very valid question. Have some, stand up. Like, stand up for, if you think American exceptionalism is so good, then fucking stand up for it. Why don't you stand there instead of running away and convince us? Come on, man. Also, this is whatever. Let me continue with what happened, okay? So Ted Cruz walked away because he doesn't have an answer. He just doesn't have an answer, and I think a lot of people want an answer, especially this guy, Angel Garza, whose 10-year-old daughter, Ameri, was murdered. Look at this.
I'm so sorry for your loss. You're holding a picture of your daughter. She had just won an honor roll.
Yeah.
What do you want people to know about her?
She was just trying to do the right thing. She was just trying to call the cops. She was so scared of just strangers and things like this. Like, she would lock the door when I would step out to put gas in the car. Like, this is literally like her worst fear, and she was just trying to help everyone.
She talked about something like this.
So I'm a med aid. So when I arrived on the scene, they still had kids inside. They started bringing the kids out, and I was aiding assistance. One little girl was just covered in blood, head to toe. Like, I thought she was injured. I asked her what was wrong, and she said she's okay. She was hysterical, saying that they shot her best friend, that they killed her best friend, and she's not breathing, and that she was trying to call the cops. And I asked the little girl the name, and she told me, she said Amory.
That's how you learn.
I'm gonna be straight up with you, man. I don't think the media really cared. They're kind of just using his pain for clicks. But regardless, I'm not interested in hearing them speak. I wanted to show what's going on. And man, honestly, give me a second here, because I want to show you. Yeah, look at this. I'm astonished that there's actually some journalism in MSNBC, but look what they said. So DPS initially tried to justify law enforcement's inability to bring down the shooter quickly by saying he wore body armor. Right? We looked at that a few minutes ago. The next morning, the agency acknowledged that it wasn't body armor, but a tactical vest that could be fitted with ballistic protection. That's a major difference. And then officials initially said that once the shooter was inside, he immediately barricaded himself inside a classroom and began shooting, right? McCraw said Wednesday that police pinned the shooter inside the classroom. The Associated Press also reported that Border Patrol agents who responded had, quote, trouble breaching the classroom door and had to get a staff member to open the room with a key. They mean a janitor, right? So, honestly, man, I'm really confused by these conflicting statements from the police. And again, look, to be very fair, this is something normal. When you have something huge, disaster like this, a crisis happens, you always got sometimes contradictory details or accounts coming, and it takes maybe a few days for the dust to settle. This is worldwide. It's like that, right? But nevertheless, I'm really just confused because I saw the videos with you right now. There's a ton of police, and they just leave that guy in the room. I don't understand this. I really don't get it. And again, I want to be clear. I'm not saying like, oh, everybody should just like you should just charge in there, man. That's extremely scary. That's extremely scary. But these guys were trained to do this. It's their job. And they literally 2 months before they've been training for this. So I'm so confused. Like, how could you allow this to happen and then just say, oh, the door was unlocked? What do you mean the door was unlocked? That's not an excuse. So what? The door was unlocked. He got inside. So what do you do now? You just let him stay in the room? Come on, man. That's not okay. That's not acceptable. I want to show you something, man, because this is really messed up. You know, in the United States, you've had 27 school shootings this year. 27. What the hell? This is from NPR. Okay, so this killing in Uvalde, Texas is the 27th one. It's the 27th school shooting this year. And this comes, of course, just 10 days after shooting at a top supermarket in Buffalo, New York, that took the lives of 10 people, which we looked at. But again, the school shootings, like it's its own phenomenon, basically, right? And I want to show you something because, again, I'm so shocked by these figures. I just can't wrap my brain around this. Wrap my mind around this. Here, look at this graph. This map, rather, and then a graph. So these are school shootings by country in 2022. And you can see down here in the key in the legend, if it's purple, it means 0. And then the more shootings you have, the more orange or red it gets. And you can see the United States just sticks out like a sore thumb. It sticks out like a sore thumb. And that's important because, you know, we're not saying, oh, every other country besides the United States never has school shootings. Obviously, no one is saying that because you can see other countries do. So it's not just like an American phenomenon or something that only exists in America. No. But the number and the frequency of it, I'm sorry, but you can't deny the figures in the map. It's right there in front of you. What the hell's going on? The United States sticks out like a sore thumb. And, you know, if Ted Cruz wants to say, yeah, but it's the freest country in the world and everybody comes here, fine, okay. I'll give you the benefit of the doubt. How do you explain this, though? And I'm not saying that to be cheeky. I'm genuinely asking that. I'm asking that as a genuine question. How do you explain this? What's going on? Why? Just why? You know, if you go down here, look at this, man. These are school shootings by country, 2022. And here are the sources. It says 288 here. 288. And I'm obviously this is not for this year, but it means in total, right? 288. That's absolutely insane. And then Mexico's 8, South Africa 6. Germany also had a couple. Yeah, there was a very famous one in Germany. But look, 288. I mean, come on, man. Like, there's something wrong here. There's something very wrong. And I want to say something clearly because I understand on one side, like on one hand, I understand people say there needs to be gun control, right? Because if you depart from the point that everybody's dangerous or like some people are dangerous, well, let's just take away the weapons, right? That's what some people say. And I kind of understand that. But let me give you another viewpoint, which I think will really open your eyes because, but by the way, before I continue, I want to show you with England and Australia, because in England and Australia, there were some massacres in 1996, okay? And let me show you. So this is from the New York Times, right? It says other countries had mass shootings, then they changed their gun laws, okay? So after a British gunman killed 16 people in 1987, the country banned semi-automatic weapons like those he had used. It did the same with most handguns after 1996 school shooting. Britain has now one of the lowest gun-related death rates in the developed world. In Australia, in the same year, a 1996 massacre prompted mandatory gun buybacks that saw, according to some estimates, as many as 1 million firearms melted into slag. The rate of mass shootings plummeted from once every 18 months to so far only one in 26 years. Okay? Canada also tightened gun laws after a 1989 mass shooting. So did Germany in 2002, New Zealand in 2019, and Norway last year. Only the United States, whose rate and severity of mass shootings is without parallel, has so consistently refused to answer those events with tightened gun laws. So look, I'm just trying to say that in England and in Australia, restricting, having gun control worked. The figures speak for themselves. I just want to say another thing, though. Hear me out. There are countries where everybody has guns, right? And I think this tweet encapsulates this perfectly. Take a look what Laith posted. He said, I find it amusing how mass shootings in the United States always lead to a circular debate about legal guns. Practically every adult in Yemen, Lebanon, etc. owns a gun illegally. Mass poverty exists there, but no mass shootings. The United States is unique amongst nations only in how sick it is. Listen, man, I'm telling you, you go to Beirut, every motherfucker has a gun. Like, they got rockets, everything. Even in the crab dance, the crab dance I played, when they were celebrating the fuel shipments coming in, one guy fired a fucking RPG in celebration. So this is a very good point, because you have countries where people have illegal guns. Everybody's a gun. In Syria also, you had tons of guns, right? But people don't go around shooting up schools. So I'm genuinely confused, like, why is this a unique thing, right? This is a good point. This is a very good point. Yeah, I think it's food for thought, and it should be taken into consideration, right? I'm not joking, man. Late is correct, right? He's Syrian like me. It's true. Every motherfucker in Yemen, in Lebanon, in Syria has an illegal gun everywhere, man. The RPGs, grenades, you name it. But you don't see school shootings. So what is it? What is it? I don't know. I really don't know. I really don't know. It's just the only thing that I can say is that it's heartbreaking. And I know that most of my viewers are Americans, but for those of you who are not American, or are not familiar with the U.S. Constitution, in the United States, they have something called the Second Amendment in their Constitution. And this is very important, right? I'll read it to you right here. It's very short. It says, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So, when people talk about gun control, the opposing side will say, you can't do that because the Constitution allows me to have weapons. So this is kind of the debate in the United States, back and forth and so on. I just want to say one thing, because I'm going to be a little cheeky here. Look what it says. It says arms, right? It doesn't say handguns or semi-autos. So I mean, technically speaking, if I become an American, I get to, do I get to have a nuclear weapon? It says arms. You said arms. Can I have a howitzer? Maybe a tank? Then you realize that there are restrictions in the United States on arms. You cannot have a nuclear weapon. You are not allowed to buy a tank. You can't just randomly set up a fucking, anti-aircraft battery in your backyard. So on the one hand, there are restrictions on arms. You can't just have anything you like. But I would, I'm being cheeky here. A tank would be nice. I'd like a nice old, shall we say, a good old T-34. How about that? Or Sherman. A lovely little Sherman. Karen says there is a license for it, Richard. Yeah, I'm sure you can. I mean, I've seen videos of people driving tanks, but the question is, are you allowed to fire shells from the tank? I don't think so. I'm not sure. But in any case, I'm being a little cheeky. I just found it funny that it's unspecified, so technically you could have a nuke if you want. In either way, this whole situation is really heartbreaking. It's really, really gut wrenching, and I think again this shows you the common humanity, because whether it's happening in Yemen or it's happening in Palestine or it's happening in the United States, it's still human beings that are suffering. Being killed senselessly for no reason whatsoever. And this is what is so heartbreaking. This is what is so, it drives you mad, because you can't do anything about it. Man, those families, like the parents, I don't even want to know what they are feeling right now, because they are probably like in hell. You saw one of the teachers, the husband literally died from grief. Literally died from grief. Had a heart attack the next day. I mean, this is how, it's really messed up, man. It's really messed up. So I don't know what they want, but what they're gonna do. But in any case, there's something in the United States called the NRA, which is the what is it? National Rifle Association. And they're a very, very controversial, shall we say, right? Because they're basically a lobby group for the weapons industry, right? So it's when there's a shooting or something, people usually go and blame the NRA and so on. And I want to say one thing here. I want to say one thing which I think is very important, for this shooting and for other things, is that you can see once again how powerful the weapons industry is, even in the US, right? And I think there's some people for sure in the NRA, in the government, or outside, otherwise, who are using like the pretext of the Second Amendment just to make money. Because if you say no, but we are allowed to have weapons, it's right to bear arms, that means money for you, because people are just going to come and buy. And I'm not saying everyone is like that, but I can guarantee you some people at the top of these groups might be, because there's lots of money to be made, right? Like, don't think that the weapons industry is only making money with wars outside the U.S. They make money in the U.S. as well, right? Remember that when a police department has a budget, they get extraordinary budgets. And you know what they go by? They go by armored personnel carriers, which is APC. Just look at this, man, like how militarized the police is in the United States. And again, they get everything they like, man. It's unbelievable. Look, this is a police force, man. This is the police in the United States. And they got a goddamn APC. I mean, I'm sorry, but this looks like the army, not the police, right? It's really crazy. It's really crazy. And regardless of what you think of the police and how they behave and so on, you cannot, like, even if they're angels, or even if you hate them, you cannot deny their clothes, their vests, their weapons, the vehicles. This is a cash cow for the military-industrial complex. Do you understand? So basically, they kit out the army, and then like, you know what? Let's kit out the police in the United States, right? So you get people in the government who lobby to give police departments bigger budgets, and then they use those budgets to buy stuff like this, armored personnel carriers, which is it's basically, it's basically a tank without a cannon, right, or a machine gun. It's implied in the name, armored personnel carrier. But nevertheless, you usually see APCs in a war zone. You don't see that inside your streets. You don't see that in your everyday life, or in your own country. That's usually something that's for a war zone, for the military. And of course, the weapons that they get, even the training. Training also costs money. So I just wanted to lay that out, because I don't understand how you can spend so much money to kit out the American police. I'm speaking in general, and then still have heartbreaking situations like this. Like logically speaking, because they have so much technology and all of this gear, they should be able to tackle any situation, right? That is what I'm trying to say. But most importantly, my point is that the police forces in the United States are a cash cow for the weapons manufacturers. Don't even trip, because it's true, and they are making bank. And then, of course, on top of that, just arming citizens. I don't remember what the exact ratio is, but it's quite big. And again, I want to be very clear. Yeah, so this is from 2018. You have 120.5 guns for every 100 residents. So they're basically, there are more guns than people in the United States. But, you can look at other countries and find the same thing. You have other countries that also have lots of weapons, but they don't have school shootings. That's the point, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that you're going to have school shootings because there's so many weapons. So I'm really just kind of I'm just kind of telling you all the various points and arguments that people make about this, and the realities of, for example, using police forces to make money, which is really another kind of avenue to make of profit. And I don't know what happened and why they didn't act. But I want to tell you one thing. When Columbine happened, I remember a lot of things growing up, but Columbine was one of them. This was a school shooting in the United States. For those of you who don't know, there's a high school called Columbine, and this is the most famous school shooting in the United States. It's really, really horrific what happened there. And, just to give you the numbers, you had, I think it was 15 killed and 24 injured. Is that right? Yeah. And you know what they did afterwards? When the school shooting happened in Columbine, they started blaming Marilyn Manson, right? Marilyn Manson is a rock star. He's a musician. And they started blaming video games, right? That's also another thing that happened. Like, it's the video games that are making them violent. Marilyn Manson told them to go shoot the school. And you know what happened? Rolling Stone magazine, which is one of the, it's a very famous publication. Marilyn Manson, in response to all of this, because I want to be very clear. I'm not saying like, it's a few people saying that. No. The whole fucking media was like, it's Marilyn Manson. It's like a media frenzy, right? It's really crazy. And they did this also, not with school shootings, but in general with like Eminem. Oh my God, he's influencing kids, blah, blah, blah. But my point here is that in response to this criticism, he wrote an op-ed in the Rolling Stone magazine. And again, this is Marilyn Manson, in case you don't know. So, he's an interesting type. And I want to read you just a few paragraphs of what he said, because I think this is really important and it's stuck in my mind. So he says, a lot of people forget or never realize that I started my band as a criticism of these very issues of despair and hypocrisy. The name Marilyn Manson has never celebrated the sad fact that America puts killers on the cover of Time magazine, giving them as much notoriety as our favorite movie stars. From Jesse James to Charles Manson, the media, since their inception, have turned criminals into folk heroes. They just created 2 new ones when they plastered those dipshits Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris pictures on the front of every newspaper. So Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, those are the guys who shot up Columbine High School, and he's calling them dipshits. So he's showing again that he doesn't agree with any of this, and he finds it deplorable. He continues, don't be surprised if every kid who gets pushed around has 2 new idols. Now listen to this. Look what he says. Quote, we applaud the creation of a bomb whose sole purpose is to destroy all of mankind. And we grow up watching our president's brains splattered all over Texas. Times have not become more violent. They've just become more televised. Does anyone think the Civil War was the least bit civil? If television had existed, you could be sure they would have been there to cover it, or maybe even participate in it, like their violent car chase of Princess Diana. Actually, when he says participate in it, it reminds me of that guy from MSNBC who was there to report about Ukraine, and then suddenly just decided to start killing Russians and join the Ukrainians. Disgusting. So he's talking about the media, right? The disgusting vultures looking for corpses, exploiting, fucking, filming, and serving it up for our hungry appetites in a gluttonous display of endless human stupidity. When it comes down to who's to blame for the high school murders in Littleton, Colorado, throw a rock and you'll hit someone who's guilty. We're the people who sit back and tolerate children owning guns, and we're the ones who tune in and watch the up-to-the-minute details of what they do with them. I think it's terrible when anyone dies, especially if it is someone you know and love. But what is more offensive is that when these tragedies happen, most people don't even really care any more than they would about the season finale of Friends or The Real World. I was dumbfounded as I watched the media snake right in, not missing a teardrop, interviewing the parents of dead children, televising the funerals. Then came the witch hunt. So, he makes a very good point, right? Like the United States, they basically, they celebrate the creation of the nuclear bomb, and they nuked two Japanese cities and then try to justify it. By the way, I'll talk about that. I have talked about that, and we'll gladly talk about Nagasaki and Hiroshima. So the United States literally invented, a nuclear bomb, and there's so much violence, and then they act like, oh, this thing is because of rock music. They act like it's something out of the ordinary. He's calling out their hypocrisy, and it's a very, very good way to put it. And again, this is from 1999, if I'm not mistaken, right? So, June 24th, 1999. So he really calls out the media for their hypocrisy. They love violence. They encourage violence. They want violence because it gets them clicks. Right now, we would say clicks. Back then, you would say hits or views, I guess. But he's right. He's right. When I myself remember watching the invasion of Iraq. They were like fucking live streaming it from a tank. I mean, I will never forget that. I don't know if it was CNN. I think it was CNN. They were on a fucking tank and live streaming it and like woohoo and celebrating it. Like how is that not violence? They're glorifying invading other people and killing them. It's horrible. But in any case, just going back to this horrific event in Texas. I mean, I'm really, really saddened by this, and I don't know what to say, man. I don't know what to say. Every day there's people being killed in Yemen. There's people being killed in Syria, and yeah, I'll add one thing. I don't want to take away from the legitimacy and the tragedy and the emotion and the empathy of this event, of this tragic event in Texas. But I wish people would show the same sympathy, or specifically the media, rather. I wish the media would show the same kind of sympathy when the United States is killing children, right? Children are dying every day in Yemen. They're starving to death because of U.S. sanctions and, of course, their support for Saudi Arabia. They bombed children in Syria. They bombed children in Afghanistan. They don't even care. You never even see their fucking names or pictures, right? They're not allowed to be humanized. They're just a number. I wish they would care. I really wish they would care as much as they do here, because they should. This is correct. It's good, but they don't do it for the other victims. Like how is that? How is bombing a school, like when Israel bombs a UN school, right? 200 people wounded. How is that any difference? That's also a fucking attack on a school. It's also a massacre, but no one cares because Israel did it. Oh, we can't criticize them. I'm not saying it's 100% equal to this, but there's still children. It's still school. It's still violence, and they don't care. I really wish they would show the same emotion and same kind of like just basic empathy, because everyone deserves it, right? So I'm it's really, really horrible. And I think as the days go on, we're gonna have more and more details coming out about what the police did, what they didn't do. And as usual, no one will be held accountable. So, what can I say? I'm I'm really sad to say this, but I'm sure that we will see more of these events in the future. And I cannot believe that I have to say that and or think that, because it's so awful and so often. It's so it happens so regularly that I would not be surprised. And that is wrong. That is not okay. That is not okay. Like, for me. Let me explain something to you, man. So you get this. When in Iraq, when Saddam Hussein was in power, again, no one's saying he's perfect. Like, no one is accepting his crimes. But you could walk down the street, knowing that you're not going to get killed by a car bomb. You can go to the mosque. You can go to the souk, and you're going to be safe. Nothing's going to happen. There's stability. Same thing in Syria, right? There's stability, safety. And I want that for everyone. I also want Americans to have that kind of sense of peace, a peace of mind. and not have to worry about, oh shit, does that guy have a gun? Is this gonna happen? Like, that's not okay, man. It's not okay anywhere. It's not okay. And I really empathize with them for this, because it's not okay, really. It's heartbreaking, very heartbreaking.